Hi everyone, what's the need? Poppin' Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Florida Georgia Line album, Life Rolls On. Country duo Florida Georgia Line hitting us with their 5th album to date. Through the 2010s, Brian Kelly and Tyler Hubbard as Florida Georgia Line have stood as the definition for modern pop and bro country, always exploring new ways to not only popify country sound, but bring musical trends from other genres into the fold. Take the aspirational millennial whistle melodies on the track Simple from 2019, or crossovers with the likes of the Backstreet Boys on God, Your Mama and Me. Now, because I'm not usually a fan of country music's more mainstream offerings, it's pretty easy to go into this album cynical. I mean, I've never heard a Florida Georgia Line song that I liked. The last one I think I ran into was the 2020 single for this record, I Love My Country. And while I do like the rockin' banjos and drums on the instrumental, the song is essentially the soundtrack to every obnoxious, loud American stereotype that the rest of the world has been laughing at for generations now. Especially with lyrics like, I'm loud and proud and rolling through town. Ain't sorry, ain't nothing to be sorry about. I love my country, I love my country. Which is obviously supposed to be a song about the genre and the culture that surrounds it, but the song is tacitly a patriotic nod too. And while Florida Georgia Line doesn't say anything too nutty or nationalistic on this track, it doesn't change the fact that when I close my eyes and I hear it, all I see is lifted trucks, flying Trump flags, and rising COVID death numbers. However, I still went into Life Rolls On hoping to hear some kind of personality, substance, or soul beyond the hits. Like, at the very least, this thing has to be better than Sam Hunt's Southside, right? Well, I'm happy to say that it is. Whew. But not necessarily by leaps and bounds or anything. Look, I think a majority of the material on this record suffers for two main reasons. One, there are tracks that are so bland and unimaginative on the record that it makes me wonder if there's a industry-wide scheme to propagandize country listeners into aspiring for nothing more than trucks, beers, and girls. Then you've got other tracks on this thing that are these garish pop, rap, country fusions that are so painfully tacky and read as just being desperate for crossover appeal. Take the opening track, Long Live, for example, which is a loud, mid-paced country rocker with sentimental lyrics about long necks, girls, and parties in the Walmart parking lot. But if you listen closely to this track, in the background, very quietly, very faintly, you can hear some trap beats rattling away behind some of the passages, and I have no idea why. They are so just buried, there's really no point in them even being there. Then the song Countryside, with its weary, sad chords and chill, skeletal, sequenced beats almost read like the start of a Drake song. Even the flows that come in on the track after this intro with references to rims just read like this ugly redneckification of hip-hop aesthetics. I mean, the song New Truck off this thing is a zany country trap banger about essentially pimping out your truck. Listening to this, it's really weird that country gets by operating as such an insular culture and section of the music industry, because this just sounds like any other shit in the top 40 right now, but just swap in some southern croons and banjos instead. Maybe at some point there was an argument for the separateness of the genre from everything else based on its sonics or philosophy, but yeah, at this point when you have artists of Florida Georgia Line's visibility just dropping what's essentially generic top 40 pop, not really. Not to turn this review into a think piece though, because I'm actually a lot more disgusted by lines on this track like, getting down where the corn grows. Why are there so many lyrics about fucking in crop fields on these new country records? I don't get it. These tight little sequenced beats also drive the backbone of Ain't Worried About It. Spoken word verses that seem a little hip hop inspired as well. Keep it simple. Back to basics. Another weird embrace of simplicity or some kind of perceived tradition on this record, which on the surface and in a vacuum is presented in a way where you can't really argue against it, because I guess generally, yeah, people should be happy with the things that they have, because who wants to be this constantly unfulfilled, nervous wreck? But when you add up all the allusions to this mindset on this record and every other mainstream modern country record, it feels more like a concerted effort to get listeners to just accept whatever rung they've been able to struggle to on the economic ladder. Take the song Good to Me as also an example of this, as we have lyrics that are essentially about God being good to you. And what is the proof of this? You got a girl, you got a truck, you're good. The all-knowing supreme being and creator of the universe wants nothing more for you in life than for you to have, you know, a WAP and a V8 with an extended cab. You know, not to detour too much again, but this reminds me of the Book of Job. Like, let's say we changed up the storyline a little bit, and to test Job's devotion to God, God instead turned that WAP into a DAP. He closed up the throttle to his favorite truck, and then he burnt down his favorite cornfield to have sex in. The song Beer 30 is one of the more comedic moments on the LP. It kind of starts off like a very tongue-in-cheek Primus song, but with no slap bass. After this intro, the song essentially blasts into some country rock riffs, booming drums, and lyrics that read like the musical equivalent to, you know, some of those like beer and fishing bumper stickers you might see plastered all over the back of a 4x4. I'm not as think as you drunk I am. Ba-ba! We also have a vague patriotism ballad on the track U.S. Stronger, which I thought lyrically would be a lot more outlandish, but it's still based on some pretty false implications, like America being bent or broken by some sort of outside force, when like 9 times out of 10 on the international stage, America is the aggressor. Then a ton of the most pressing national issues we have been dealing with as of late are more or less a product of the past 4 years, and laying that at the feet of 45 is going to be a no-no for an audience that most likely sympathizes with him. The whole track sounds like the product of an idyllic fever dream. Then there's the title track, which is so packed with lyrical cliches it basically means nothing outside of, yeah, we keep existing and things keep happening despite bad stuff. What that bad stuff is, we don't know, but I guess. As far as highlights go, I guess there is Life Looks Good, which has a fun little honky-tonk groove to it, some rhythm guitar that would sound pretty nice on a Creedence song. There's a lot of painfully sappy ballads packed into the track list too, like the very slick and airy Hard to Get to Heaven. Also, Always Gonna Love You, which easily has one of the worst hooks on the entire project. Long Time Coming is a track about getting down to some lovin' after maybe a hard week of work and distractions. Then Eyes Closed is about getting down to some lovin', this time because the lights are out. The track makes such a big deal of having sex with the lights off, as if like that's something your average person couldn't do. Look, overall with this album, some portions of it I found to be surprisingly listenable. The production is consistently clean and clear, and while the content of these tracks is consistently corny, at least the vocal performances are pretty decent. Then I guess the instrumental ideas don't seem to be as generic as they have been on some past Florida Georgia Line records. One could even make the argument that this is one of Florida Georgia Line's more versatile releases, with its balance of ballads and ragers and more humorous cuts here and there. But God, are most of the songs and lyrics on this thing unbearable. So unbearable, their lack of quality kind of overtakes any positives presented on the album, honestly. Not sure what else to say. Sonically, this record sounds totally decked out and even pretty at points, but when it comes to its heart, the content at the core of it. It is cheap as hell, and that's about it. Feeling a strong 2 to a light 3 on this one. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Florida Georgia Line of Forever.